And here's the Suns draft history as an example of bad drafting catching up to a team that desperately needed to hit big on just one of these picks. And they hit big on one of them. But then they trade that player away. So let's go into it. 2015, they take Devin Booker with the 13th overall pick. One of the best drafts in recent memory to get yourself a player who in Kentucky was really underutilized, right? Absolute A+. 2014, they took TJ Warren, 14th pick. Another huge hit out of NC State. After those two drafts in 2015 and 2014, they take 2016, they have a top 5 pick. You take Dragon Bender. With the 8th pick, you take Marquise Chris. Two bigs that within 5 years were both out of the league. 2017, you take Josh Jackson in the top 5, the top recruit, an insanely athletic, gifted wing that never developed. It's two top 5 picks that did not last. 2018, you take DeAndre Ayton with the 1st overall pick. I think that was one of the worst draft picks in recent memory. If you took yourself Luka Doncic, let alone traded back because you weren't that high on Luka, let's say, get yourself a Trae Young. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander back then was a top 7 pick for me in that class. There were so many great initiators you could have gotten, and point guard was a much bigger need than center. Back in 2018, you had just watched the Warriors for 4 straight years go to the NBA Finals and win 3 championships by neglecting the center position. And you said to yourself, you know what? We're going to replicate that by taking a center who's compared to David Robinson. And truth be told, that comparison was a little bit off. David Robinson had a motor. Then with the 10th pick, you trade up and you get yourself Mikal Bridges. That pick was a home run. It took him 5 years to become the player he now is, but he was one of the most underappreciated players coming out of Villanova. The following year, you get yourself the 6th pick and you trade that back for Cam Johnson. That was another really solid pick in a draft class that didn't have much depth. That's a B+ for sure. Then after that in 2020, I mean, this is one of the other terrible draft picks the Suns made. You again take a center over a point guard. This time around, it is not Luka Doncic, it is Tyrese Haliburton. Look, the Suns don't beat the Nuggets in the series even with Chris Paul, but let me tell you something. If they drafted Tyrese Haliburton over Jalen Smith, a player who is no longer on the team, just like all those other top 10 picks, they would have no problem being these Nuggets. I think passing on the point guard position again, which Devin Booker does not have, is one of the worst decisions, again, in recent draft history. And that's between 2 different regimes and James Jones and Ryan McDonough. It's truly a work of art. The fact you neglected the point guard position this much and instead took centers, when in today's day and age, the center is an inherently less valuable position than point guard at every single level.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously revisionist history.
I would have told you that for each of those 2 picks at the time, Brandon.
Yeah,
it was so obvious, cut and clear. Look at the finals.
I get
Look
that
at the playoffs.
I get that, but I mean, they did get Chris Paul, so.
But what happens now? He's 38 years old. He can't stay healthy in the playoffs.
Yes, but they didn't
a backup to replace him when he gets injured.
That's why they got campaign, and it just has not. I mean, listen, you can't call it a total failure when they've had a regular season record wins. What was that last year?
64 wins last year. What would they have done with Tyrese Haliburton last year?
Yes, and then they made the finals 2 years ago. So it hasn't been a total failure. It's just, listen, this team right now, it just doesn't fit. And I fully expect the Suns in the offseason to address everything. I do expect DeAndre Ayton to be traded. I expect them to go get 2 bigs that are going to fit this team very well. Wouldn't it be hella interesting if they went and got like a Draymond Green? I don't think that's money-wise possible, but hell, that would be, hella interesting. I don't know what Chris Paul's future. I think he's a free agent. Might have a player option, but we don't know if he's going to retire. I don't know if he wants to retire. I think maybe now that he's got KD and Book, I think he might say, you know what, I'll stick around. He's definitely got to take a pay cut because they can't be paying KD, Book, and him $30+ million all together. That's just too much. But I expect them to rework this roster in the offseason, and they're going to be back next year. I truly do believe that. Listen, Book and KD are 2 of the most talented players in the NBA. Chris Paul is still a point guard, and I know he still gets injured. I think they'll address the backup point guard position in the offseason too. It's just that don't sleep on the Phoenix. There are moves to be made to fix correct situations that happened before. So, and I expect them to do that.
Yeah, they'll be a totally different team next year. And you add that with the whole off season, they'll be okay.
If they hit on their draft, they'd be a totally different team. But the failure was not what you did in the past. It was, as a lot of fans will say, looking in the future. And because they missed all those picks, they're in for a rude awakening when DA has no trade value. And Chris Paul could be cut potentially because he's only got a non-guaranteed deal after this year. $30 million up until his age 40 season is a lot of money, right? But if you cut him or you release him, you're only paying him $15 million. So that's a potential possibility for the Suns. The real, the despicable part for me was just the fact you never actually got the point guard for D-Book. And now that Chris Paul is finally at that point, you don't have any opportunity in the draft because D-Book's too good to give you a top 10 pick. Yeah, that's the failure. You didn't capitalize at all. You missed big time. And your process was just totally off. Totally not in the right place.
They don't need a young guy right now. They've got their 2 stars.
They don't need a young point guard, Brandon. They're starting Damian Lee in campaign and playoff games, man.
You were begging for Damian Lee to get playing minutes, and now you're saying they're playing him?
He's not a starter, my friend.
I'm not saying he's going to be a starter. I'm not calling for them to be a starter. I'm saying there are people in the offseason that can get in there and contribute very well.
They've got a veteran point guard.
DeAndre Ayton, they don't need to get a massive draft haul for him. They just need to get some good pieces to build around. Now it's about rotation pieces. It's all about building around KD and Book. You've got KD and Book. You've got the core. Now it's about building around them. I'd rather have that than be starting from scratch.
Well, no kidding. I'm just saying it's hard to find the assets because you don't have much assets now. You gave up all of your first-round picks for Kevin Durant, basically. Damn near all the ones that you can trade,
because he's Kevin fucking Durant.
Yeah, and he's 34 years old and he's not healthy. He's not playing at the level that you traded for is the real issue. Outside the 5 second-round picks you got for Jay Crowder, there's not a whole lot of.
So do you expect KD? So do you think KD's in decline?
Pardon me?
Do you think Kevin Durant is in decline?
Yeah, I do. This is now 2 straight playoff runs where he's been injured. He's not 100%, and he's struggling to play at that level. He's 34 years old. I think he's still a top 5 player. But in the playoffs, we're seeing it again where he is invincible, right? Christian Brown's a rookie playing really well on him. He was now 24. Kevin Durant has nowhere been near the level of a player the Suns gave up 5 first-round picks, a young star, Mikal Bridges now, and Cam Johnson for. Not even remotely close to that level. Defensively, he's been really good. But we're seeing the issue. He's hurt every year in the playoffs, right? You can't keep coming back around to me every single season. Like, oh, well, he's hurt again. He's hurt every single season. What do you expect? He's coming off a torn Achilles. The fact he's playing at this level is a testament to his work ethic. But it's hard to pencil him in as that guy who's going to be reliable for you with lack of depth. And for the Suns, I just haven't liked their process over the years, and that's caught up to them. That's what I think the failure is. Not that you won 64 games last year. You built a really good team that was an absolute monster in the regular season. But in the playoffs, we're seeing the same issues pop up. And that's where I'm critical of them. You can't look at this rose-colored glasses in my eyes after all the mistakes they've made in recent years.
Glasses. Nobody's doing that. We're just saying you've got Kevin frickin' Durant. You've got Devin Booker, who John on this show has called possibly the best player in the Western Conference.
That was for one series, I was saying. I'm saying Devin Booker's just the best shooting guard in the game. But using hyperbole, I said for a series, he was the best player in the West. That's not crazy to say. He played great versus the Clippers.
Okay. Still, you have those 2 guys. You've got Monty Williams, who's a good head coach. You have DeAndre Ayton, who you're not going to get 4 first-round picks, but I don't expect you to get.
I don't know if you're getting 1 first-round pick, Brandon.
You don't need first-round picks at the end of the day for him. You don't need that. What you need is rotational pieces that are ready to play right now, because that's the mode they're in. You have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. You are not looking for 10 years down the line. You're looking for 3 to 4 right now. We are going all in. That is what they are doing. That's what I don't think. I understand you're looking at what they were, but now you got Kevin Durant, D-Book. You are contenders at the end of the day.
Your window is now. Yes. I get what Brandon's saying, but I also understand that you can still draft to win now and also plan for the future.
They don't have the pieces for that, so there's no point in even thinking about that right now. They don't have that, so why even stay on that point? You have to move forward. No sense in crying over spilled milk. Just clean it up and move on.
It's just like, I think Ayton's a negative value contract for $32 million.
Somebody's going to take him, John. We know, you act like you don't see this every day in the NBA or NFL where a sucker is every day. They're going to, somebody's going to trade for him.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.